I would like to, well, at first, in the beginning, I thought it would be a good thing to tell you something about myself. I'm 20-something-year-old Finnish poker player slash poker coach. I've been playing for few years now. Both, well, mostly no limit hold'em, headshot, hold gas games and sit and goes, and some six max also. And on Sundays I usually play MTTs if I have nothing better to do on Mondays. Yeah, some dude with a stick is a living legend, so nothing to add to that. As you can most likely hear from now, I'm not native English speaker. I live in Finland and I don't get to speak English too much, but hopefully we'll manage. And if you for some reason don't fully understand everything I say, please comment below and I'll try to say what I'm about to say in other words. Yeah, if you have any comments or questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I'm here for trying to tell you and explain everything I'm doing as well as possible. So yeah, don't be shy. I was asked to play 2 tables of, well, I was asked to play NL5 or any other small limit. We're playing 6 max limit, 6 max, no limit hold'em, as you know, and I was asked to play smaller stakes than I usually play because many of you might play small stakes and try to grind yourselves up. So I was thinking we would play NL5 today because I don't think it differs too much from NL2, and when we go on in future poker nights we will be playing bigger stakes. Today we will be playing snap poker on 888 poker. As you know, 888 poker is the new what is it? Side of ours that we support, and if you want to support us, you can join and register to 888 poker through us. You can see the links from our forum, pokerimania.com/forum, and there you can find the instructions for registering to 888 poker. We will be playing snap poker, which is a form of fast poker, and I have not been playing NL5 or any of the other small stakes recently in a very long time, so I don't really know how the games are gonna be like. I have been told that the games are extremely soft on this site, so if that is true, I obviously highly recommend you to create an account and try 888 poker. We are gonna do 2 table, and I'm gonna name the tables table 1 and table 2. Table 1 is gonna be on the left and table 2 is gonna be the right one. And if you have any questions about certain hands, you can just leave a message like in table 2 when you had pocket kings, blah blah blah. So please describe the hand you are asking something for with some added details, so it's easier for me to answer. Yeah, greetings for all of you. And thanks for the good luck. Vako asks, what do you think about 888 software compared to others? I haven't played on 888 poker in a while because I mostly play heads up, and 888 poker doesn't offer heads up cash games nowadays. I'm not a big fan of the software compared to, let's say, PokerStars, but if you compare it to iPoker or OnGame or any other one, it's like, I would think it's about the same level of software. So yeah, nothing to tell. You can't use heart when playing snap poker, so definitely if you don't have a tracker and you can't afford it, I think snap poker is a very good place for you, because the games are soft and no one has an heart, so you wouldn't give any of the advantage away. Colin asks if I'm going to do multiple street bluffs. Mostly not, because I think we are gonna have a ranges with very value heavy ranges today. But let's see. I'm gonna be playing for around 90 minutes. We had a delayed start and I have been speaking for a few minutes now, so maybe, I don't know for how long we'll play, but let's see. Yeah, so let's begin and jump into the tables. I'm gonna join in two of these 2-cent, 5-cent tables, and yeah, here we go. If you think 2 tables is too much, just leave a comment below, and I can just as well play 1 table. I'm gonna use 3 exercises from UTG and hijack, and mean raise from cutoff and bottom. Björk asks, sorry if I pronounce your name horribly, but asks if I can still take notes in snap poker on certain players. I actually don't know. As you might see, I open raise king 5 off and 8-7 off. I like to play with wide ranges, so these are both hands that you don't need to open. Definitely if you are not as comfortable with your post flop play, but if you are more advanced player, it's totally fine to open a lot of hands. I'm just gonna complete, no real need to raise, and I think 10-9 offsuit is going to be way too strong to fold. And as you see, this guy min raises, so yeah, we can do player notes, and I'm using color blue as a label for a player that I like to play against. Yeah, looks like you can make notes, so on the turn we turn gutter and flush draw. It's close whether I'd like to lead 4-way. I think I do. none of these players seem to have a very good hand on the flop, and queen obviously might help them, might give them some draws, but I like stabbing here. On table 1 I don't like c-betting. We don't get there's not a ton of value in betting, and not too many of worse hands will call. As played, I think he's gonna have too many busted draws, but I'm gonna make a small bluff on the rail. I'm gonna call here once, and if he barrels the turn, I think he's gonna have ace too often. Yeah, I don't think he will have too many bluffs there, so I'm just gonna fold. Looks like I don't have an automatic pop up to $5, but so I think I just have to add chips manually every time. Pocket pairs on both tables, so not too much to discuss about them. This guy plays with a very small stack, and he also min dunk bets, so I think he's gonna be a recreational player a lot. So I'm just gonna use slightly bigger sizings against him. Now he opts to fold, so my sizing really doesn't matter that much. If this player are really this bad as they seem to be, I think 3x from pretty much all the positions would be good, but for now I'm gonna min bet delayed positions. Okay, well, hopefully we don't have to use the rebuy options too much though, but table settings, game settings. Oh yeah. So I think they are in here. Yeah, okay. To maximum. Yeah. That's it. I'm gonna 3x this. Against unknown, we don't really know if we are going to auto profit. So we are just gonna not open that much hands if we assume our opponent is not gonna be very bad. And usually we are going to play more hands against opponents with less than 100 big blinds, and opponents that are from, for instance, countries that are more likely to be bad. Oh, I misclicked with pocket jacks. I meant to 3-bet. So then that's something I have to take a look at. Björk asks, on table 1 with pocket 8s, would you bet the flop OOP? Usually not. You can very often include hands like that into your check calling range, and on future streets, whether your opponent bluffs a lot, and depending on what the board texture is going to be like, you can either check call for multiple streets or just fold on turn or river. You don't really achieve much by betting, because again it's pretty hard to get value from worse hands. Yeah, there's a Finnish opponent, and I have a delay on my stream, so I don't know if he's something I should be worried about. But yeah, I don't see too much value in 3-betting against assumed good player, so I'm just gonna check. Different than check on many structures. Checking down. Now he ups the bet. He's basically repping ace, jack. On table 2, this is a close spot whether I want to see it or not. I think I will. I'm gonna fold in table number 1. Usually when he claims that he has showdown value by checking twice and suddenly decides to bet, they usually have it. Yeah, I don't have any added delay on this stream because I thought that in snap poker I get a ton of hands in, fairly large pool, so I don't get hustled too often, and I don't really think many of you want to or will. And if for some reason you end up hustling, so good for you. This guy keeps min dunk betting, and we have 2 overs and we can plot on some textures. Now he has to bet half a pot, and it's a spot I fold in. Just checking down. Called 1 min bet, and now again, well, this is a hand I think I'm gonna call. Well, no. Bjork asks, on the same hand, it doesn't matter to you that board is paired with 2 overcards, another ace will kill your hand completely. Well, yeah, if another ace hits the turn or river, it counterfeits my hand, but again, that's pretty unlikely compared to all the other scenarios. I see it once. I don't really like check calling for multiple streets, and this is a pretty standard squeeze spot with ace king suited. I think 13 big blinds is a fine sizing against 3x and a flat call. This is a hand you don't have to open from cutoff, but I think I have an edge against pretty much all the players in this pool, so I'm just gonna play a bit more hands from every single position. And against open races, I'm gonna play fairly tight. Just now we are not gonna misclick fold. We get a flat from bottom. Usually have something decent, but you never know against NL5 players. I'm just gonna continuation bet for pure value. I get mean raised, which is not always great, but definitely hand this strong. I'm not gonna fold. He might have draws, 1 pair hands, and that doesn't make too much sense. On this turn, I'm gonna value bet. I'm gonna use a fairly small sizing, just over half a pot, because his range is usually pretty weak. He has 8x hands, and well, some trips, if he for example had a card shot that he decided to mean raise on the flop, he river trips, but usually he has pretty weak hands, so I think he had a 8 fairly often, or maybe something weaker, and as we can see he had ace jack of clubs, so he mean raised a flush draw and then check back the turn, which I think both decisions are pretty bad, and then he opts to call the river bet, and I very rarely have any bluffs in there, especially on the river 4, because it's not a very good bluff card for me. So I think his decision on every single street except for the pre-flop is pretty bad. Yeah. Against mean raise on a flat, Jack 5 suited looks pretty weak. So, but we have a great odds, and I think against weaker players we are definitely gonna have a very good scenarios post-flop. They are asked with pocket jacks, why check on turn? Well, when I get raised on the flop, there's no real need to. I can't think of any good reasons to lead on the turn suddenly when I check call the flop. I mean bet call. If he has what is representing, what is 2 pair or better, there's no real need for me to build up a pot against his strong range. And if he has draws or bluffs, so then what are we betting for? It doesn't make really any sense for me to bet call on the flop and then suddenly lead on the turn, no matter how safe of a card that turn 4 looks like. Piece 4 seems to be working. Okay. Rodman seems to know a bit more about the software than I do. This queen jack hand I sometimes would like to 3-bet because of the small blinds flat. Now there's no real need to raise. We can just throw cheaply. Yeah, small blind opts to flat this min raise, so he very rarely has any good hands in his range. So this is a pretty good spot to 3-bet pre-flop. I just think queen jack suited is pretty good hand, so I don't have to turn it into a bluff. Seems like if you want to fold and see what happens, you can just, it opens another table, and he ends up having queen 9 off. Pything asks what I would do if he bets the turn. It depends on the sizing and the turn card, but in almost every scenario I'm calling the turn. Would you consider raising more than 2 Bs on button and cutoff in these stakes with a strong hand? Yeah, if I knew the opponents on blinds were very bad, then I would. But without any reads, I would. I don't like to. I get 3-bet, which is not nice, but he uses a pot size sizing, which usually means that he is not that good. So I like to play post flop. We flop pretty well. There's no real need for to raise here, because I want to get this middle guy into a pot as well. So trying to lure him in, and I almost always have him beat, so I'm just gonna check call twice. I think he has ace king. He ends up having a set of aces, so that's pretty much cooler. But yeah, I like to have a big stack to pot ratio when I play, so that's why I mean raise, but you can't really say that 3xing is, or 2.5xing is going to be a mistake. This is a spot I again don't like c-betting too much in three-way pots. I have a pretty good equity, and if I get raised, I usually don't get to realize it. Against in table 1, my opponent has a blue label, so he's very likely going to be bad, so I'm just going to value bet. This is a situation I usually don't get 3 of a value, so I think checking turn is fine. If he checks, we can very often value bet the turn, and if he bets, we are just check calling. And yeah, check calling once at least. And if he bets the river very big, I'm going to have to fold pretty often. River card is pretty interesting. It doesn't really change so much, and he's representing king. He ends up betting 3 times the box, so I think this is a scenario where I have to fold him. If he does something like that in the future, we might call him, but without any better reads, he can very easily have a king. So yeah, not folding, not calling. Here, I don't really think we are ever getting calls or folds, but we have 2 overs and a nut flush draw, so this is a very standard all-in jam against short stack, and we end up getting fold. So he decided to bet a bit more in pot and then fold with a great odds. This is a spot when small blind min raises. I'm not gonna fold any hands, and 10 deuce off is a very bad hand for, well, it's almost too bad of a calling hand. Unlike queen 6 hand, queen 6 suited is a good calling hand. So I like to have a polarized 3-bet range, so 10 deuce off is a fine 3-bet. I'm gonna call again. I'm just gonna sit out next hand for the comments. It seems like it's fairly hard to play 2 tables and comment at the same time. Here I tried to bluff, and I think this is a good run out to bluff again. Yeah, I'm gonna bluff again and give up in table 1. Yeah, 9-8. Table 2. With ace 4 with gut shot and button, since both players check the turn, they probably have anything. So you most likely have nothing. Can you bet here for the pure protection against 2 random cards? Yes, you could, but with ace high, I usually like to go to showdown. Any of the other players might have better ace high hands, and still they might have some check raises in the range. So I like checking. It's pretty unlikely that either of them is gonna hit the river. So yeah, I like checking that. I think someone else should give it try the confident. It's about PT4. Callan asks, how about ace king flop spot if we were more than 100 big blinds deep? If he don't bet the pot, it really depends on what kind of odds we are getting. If we get a good odds, then we're gonna just call in some situations, and usually I'm still shoving. It really doesn't make any sense for him to don't bet any very strong hands with such sizing. So I just usually shove that, and as we saw, he has some folding hands in his range too. So getting folds in such spot is very profitable for us. Yeah, for animator it's very good too. Yeah, continuing play. It hasn't been a great start mainly because of we lost one buy-in with top 2 against top 7. Again, in that spot we are very rarely, if ever, behind. This is a spot where raising and calling are both fine. Rateless, I think I'm just gonna call him. I don't really mind playing post flop. In table 1 we are again in a situation where we could discuss whether we want to see bet or not. When he donk bets, I think we're just going to fold. Again, against mean bet, we have one overcard and pretty much all the backdoor draws, so we're calling a mean bet and trying to get a flush or pair of aces or something. That's what we end up getting, and I think bet folding is better than check calling. I don't expect to get bluffed too often, so. And yeah, in table 1 we are going to call. This card called with a straight in a spot where we never have him beat, so not a very terrible scenario. In table 1 I like betting. If I had ace high, I would just call more often and check more often and try to get the showdown, but king high is a bit too weak. I can get better hands to fold, like ace high hands to fold with multiple bets. On table 2 with ace of diamonds, I'm gonna float once. Well, his sizing is so big that I think if he's a good player, he's rarely ever bluffing. I get 3-bet, but the sizing is very small. Well, he only has like 16 big ones. But yeah, I'm gonna call this very well. I think I'm just gonna be a tight ass and fold. Because he only had 60 big blinds, this sizing is not that small. I fairly often see pretty good players use smaller sizings with smaller effective stack sizes. In table 2, I thought there were some value in betting. You could also check, but I like to include at least one 3x hand in my c-betting range here. If I had like queen 3, I would check, or any other 3 but ace 3, I would check. I think betting is fine, and against mean bet I'm gonna call. I'm gonna label him as a fish before calling. Yeah, king check. We have four-way pots, no value in betting, and no, we don't get, if we opt to bluff with pocket tens, we don't get 3 folds too often on board like that. And in table 1 we don't need to defend, and in table 2 I'm gonna fold the very worst hands of my 100% range that I am on the big ones. So even if he mean raises, you don't have to defend with everything, but I'm gonna defend with most hands. 6-3 of cities. Too bad. No, my HUD doesn't work. PT4 seems to work. So yeah, it's been a while since I've played with no HUD, but I think it's good to play without HUD every once in a while. I get mean 3, but so I'm gonna label him as a fish. I'm gonna flat my ace deuce suited here in table 1. It's fairly close whether there's value in forbidding. I think there usually is, so I'm just gonna forbid. I don't like to get 5-bet here because then it's usually better hand than mine. In spots like this, I usually use smaller sizing, but against a fish on a very wet board, I can use nearly a pot, half a pot sized sizing. In table 1 we get to check with our showdown equity. He doesn't have too many 8s in his range. Pocket ace 8 is pretty much the only one, so I'm just gonna bet for value and checking down in the table 1. Yeah, I think on table 2 he usually has pocket 8s or any worse hand that mine is. So against the fish, I think it's most likely going to be best just to bet for value. Against the fish, play a fish with 55 stack. When I flop a pair, I'm gonna value bet. What kind of range you would steal from the SB against unknown? Well, none of these opponents are really unknown. You always get to see I don't know if you get to see the country they're from on this software, but you can always see whether he has more or less than 100 big blinds, and if they have less, they are very likely going to be bad players. And against bad players, I'm going to open more hands like this. Against a smaller stack, I like to steal. I face a squeeze. It's going to be very often going to be 3-way pot. I'm just gonna call. I think we are going to have very good implied odds. Not on such board, I'm just gonna fold. On table 2, Snodigan asks why not check raise on the flop. I don't think he's gonna whether he is fish or regular, I don't think he's gonna bet such board too often. And since he didn't fold it before the flop, he usually doesn't have queens or better, and if he has 10s or 7s, whatever the third card was, he's either gonna have a set that is almost always going to raise us, or at least not gonna fold ever. And if he has ace king or ace queen, it's not a spot that I would expect him to bet if I check. So I don't like to have a check raise range in 4-bet pots on such text. In table 2, ace 4 is clearly good enough to steal, and in this spot, even though we have an ace high hand, it's a good idea to bet. There are a ton of turn cards we can barrel on. He makes a very large raise, so I'm just gonna fold. it's a good thing that you guys have a lot of questions, because that's the way to learn. It's a good thing that we get a discussion about lines that could and might be better than the ones that I choose. And the color on about this hedgehog spot, no. Depends. It mostly depends on his calling range. Today in Hyper Turbos I had an opponent who called with ATC, so against VLAN like this it does make sense to shove, but against unknown it really doesn't. In table 2 this is a good treated spot. He's gonna open with a ton of hands, and ace-9 off is going to be a good hand to take into our range. So yeah, I usually wouldn't 3-bet. Buaka asks again about the... Okay, let's discuss it after this hand. I'm just gonna see that next hand again. In table 2 I'm gonna isolate. The limper is always going to be a bad player, and I would like to isolate and play heads up against this guy, and therefore I'm gonna have a very wide range. Even hands like this, they play very good, well, fairly good post flop, and now that we flop 2 pair, it looks stupid not to do so. I don't really like this big blind line, because we might be behind. Now it's just about if there's really point in raising, and I don't think so. I'm usually gonna isolate myself against better hands. I might be very easily be behind in this pass, but I can't fold. He has flush draws and some ace-x hands if he's bad, so I'm just gonna call. I can't fold there. Yeah, so just going call. He has 9-8 offsuit, so welcome to 888 Poker. Poker Eye Mania is proud to pronounce that you can now just create an account via our link and be part of these games. I'm not gonna discuss about his line or strategy or anything. So yeah, I think I answered Colin's question. I wouldn't usually 3-bet, only if I knew that it's purely for value. If I knew that my opponent will call with worse hands, then I would, but usually wouldn't, and I wouldn't 3-bet call hands like this. Maybe if they were suited, then I would 3-bet call. Queen jack suited and king jack suited and hands like these are fairly good hands to take into your 3-bet calling range in heads up with shallow stacks, because they play very good post flop, and yeah, you kind of want to have some hands balancing the very top of your range. I'm not gonna discuss heads up strategy too much today, so you can just post on forums, or we can discuss on Skype if you want to, but today we are going to stick with 6max. We are gonna have heads up poker nights in the future. Yoki asked about table 2, where we had ace-4 on the king XX flop. What a good cards for us to barrel on. And would I barrel river on some runouts too? The good cards are, well, obviously ace when we can value bet, and any diamonds and any cards we get a straight draw on. Whenever we pick up equity, it's usually very good spot to barrel. If he's thinking player, he's going to have a pretty wide calling range on the flop, because he's gonna float, because we are going to see that his structure almost every time. And if he's weak one, he might have just about anything, like just about anything, as we saw in the 9-8 hand. So therefore I think we are going to get a lot of better and some better, like some ace-x hands, and a lot of worse hands that might have some equity. We get them to fold fairly often. So I think betting flop is fine. You can also check from time to time, but with diamond and fairly bad ace, I usually like to bet and bet turn on just about all the cards you get any equity on. And yeah, barreling river, it depends on the runout. If you expect to get more fold equity with this runout, then I would recommend you to bet the river as well. But if the river pairs a deuce or something like that, like the turn is a deuce and river is a deuce, you usually don't get any added fold equity. So you kind of have to ask yourself, do you believe that when your opponent calls the turn, is he likely to fold this river? And if the answer is no, then I would just not usually barrel. Why the creek flag avatars? Is it plus EV? Everything a creek does is a plus EV. Yeah, I agree with you. With just about everything you said. You are a wise man, Kalyan. You are a wise man. Yeah, that's the motto for tonight. It's not free, but it's cheap. Is the swap pillow? It's snap. This is a N. And it seems like there is not. There are snap tournaments and snap no limit holding cash games. But I don't see any PLOs. I don't know if I have any filters on, but yeah, the one you were arguing with seems to be pretty bad in either heads up or poker in general. Let's not tell him that I would be defending with 15 big blinds, hands like 8-7 and so on. Yeah, kind of off topic. Everything a creek does is a good thing. I don't know what I said, but I tried to say that everything a creek does is plus EV. You can just, for example, take a look at their economy, and that's something every country should look out for, and yeah, and so on. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna continue. Keep discussing, guys. it helps. It gives me more time to struggle with my English if you argue with argue about just about anything. Yeah, I mean raising hands like this from cutoff is standard. You could also 3x, but arguing about whether 3xing or min raising is better, it's not something that makes the difference in your game. Whether it doesn't really make a difference to the fact whether you are profitable or not in these stakes. So yeah, limper, full label. I would highly recommend you to label any opponent you get a feeling that he might be fishy, because it's gonna affect your decisions later on. This is a spot where I could 3-bet because I think he's gonna isolate pretty widely, as I did in the 6-4 suited hand. But again, he might not. This is NL5, and usually average opponent isn't wise enough to have a very wide isolation range. I don't even English. Yeah, gonna defend against 2.5x with very good odds. With no equity, I'm just gonna fold. In raising, in my games, I min raise as a default something like 80 to 90% of hands on the button. It really depends on the small blind and big blind whether you can open that much or not. And on smaller stakes, you have to remember that the rake is usually bigger, which means that you can't open quite that much. But again, when although the rake is bigger, your opponents are usually going to be pretty bad. So I don't think having a wider range is going to be a bad idea. This is a spot I usually would 3-bet a lot. Although this guy is the one who had aces. Oh, that's not the sizing I want to use. He had the aces, so he might be very, well, I don't know if he's gonna be good or not. His line didn't look too good. He made a bigger than bot sized bet on the turn with top set. There were two very small stacks on blinds, so that usually is a good reason to flat there, but ace queen suited is good enough for me to just call. 3-bet. Against the min raise, I'm gonna flat hand like this also. Both of my opponents check, so I think not one of them is going to have a king very often, so I'm just gonna make a differential bet for defense. Is that English? I don't know. I need to defend my hand. Defense, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Well, in this spot we have two stacks behind with 150 big blinds or more, so I'm just gonna 3x with wider stacks. Yeah, I don't have a problem with playing with deep stacks. Okay, let's play this pot before arguing about that. This is a turn I very rarely I don't think he has me beat like ever. He might have turn 2 pair, but I think I'm fairly often best in this pot. And I want to protect my, protect is the word I was looking for before. This is a texture, he's gonna have a ton of draws, and that's the reason to raise the turn. Not just about whether we have a ton of value in betting the river. Is my time bank automatically on? No, it's on. Might have some king x draws. I think it's fairly difficult to get a call by worse hands. So I'm just gonna check. He ended up having queens, and that's something. I'm just gonna label him as a blue. I'm going to write a quick note. Didn't 3-bet queens. SP versus cutoff. Check call. 9-7 deuce, 2 clubs. Mean dunk bet. Call on 8 of hearts and checks the king x. So he mean dunk bets the turn with queens. What I really don't get, what is he trying to accomplish? I think he tries to get to the showdown cheaply, but yeah. Yeah, about Cullen's question about whether I like to rat hole, I don't. It's an EV decision for me. I consider to have a bigger edge with dealer stacks, but I think rat holding is not a very good for the games in the bigger scenario. If you think of poker as a whole, it's usually not. It's not a good thing that rat holding is allowed. So yeah. You can't see what. Yeah, I agree with Valko, but for some reason I don't get to see where they're from. Maybe it's because of my computer or something. Callum getting deep in fast food now. Yeah, I agree with Wayne. Yeah, just gonna resume. We have like, I would say 30 to 45 minutes left. And yeah. We get a limp. We are going to isolate. He could 4x because we are isolating for value, because I think we are getting exploited ever by fish, but I opted not to. Yeah, this guy is a fish also. Going to open juices. At these stakes against opponents as bad as these villains seems to be, I like open raising every single pocket pair from every position, but against better opponents I wouldn't open these smallest pocket pairs from UTG. From hijack I most likely would. Yeah, and four-way on a board like this, when we don't hit a set, I'm just not gonna bet. I'm usually just gonna give up, or I might hit the juice on later streets. Yeah, I'm going to mean with labeling this guy as fish. This is a very bad flop for me, not because we don't have a set or there's 3 overcards, but because this is a board texture that I expect this guy hits very good on when he's defending, and I somehow win with my deuces. Yeah, whenever your guy, villain defends, whether it's against a steal or whether he flats a 3-bet or something, boards like this with a queen, jack 10 or any cards like from the bigger middle in range, I don't know. Not aces and not that much kings, but the queens to 8s, they usually hit them fairly well. Because smaller ones, 7s to deuces, I think my villains will very often fold, and aces and kings, the opponents usually raises. Not all of them, obviously, but most of them, or at least the bigger part of them, compared to the hands with queens, jacks, 10s, and so on. Here I defended ace-4 offsuit against the min raise, and we flop a card slot, so we are just going to call, and I think I might have a best hand some of the time, so I'm just going to call the turn, and he opts not to value bet the river, which seems pretty tight. Yeah, for some reason I don't get to see where my opponent is from. Oh, I suddenly did somehow, but I don't know how. I'm going to 3-bet ace-10, and we flop a flush draw, so I'm just going to continuation bet. On monotone boards I like to use a bit larger than half pot sizing. He makes a big raise and I have no interest on this pot anymore. This guy makes a very small 3-bet. These are cold calls. Wow, English is pretty hard from time to time. I have a very good odds and a hand that plays fairly well post-flop, so I'm just going to call. And depending on his c-bet sizing, whether he opts to make one or not, I'm going to call this flop as well. That's very big. Very big. I think I'm just going to fold. It might seem weak, but most of these opponents, they don't c-bet every single time, and they usually have 2 sizings, and against very big sizing I'm just willing to believe that he has more value heavy hands, and against value hands I'm not in a very good shape with second pair. Going to defend this hand, no sense in 3-betting. going to check call when I hit a pair. Every other option is bad in my opinion. And again, on this turn, I think he's gonna have a very value heavy range. We'll check out because of the comments or questions. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna fold this one again. I very rarely think I'm gonna be bluffed. Yeah. If we check call, what cards are we going to? What river cards are we happy to check call on? So I think folding is just the better option. Little bet to see where you are. Is that an option? Queen 9 hearts hand? No, I don't think so. That is called an info bet, an info raise. And in 2014, I think that it would be a good idea not to bet just because just to get information. Checking is free, and when you check, you get to see what your opponent does, and that is a good piece of information as well. So I wouldn't like to bet to get an information and to see where we stand at in this hand. So no, I don't think betting there is an option I would take ever. You 3-bet ace-10 and bet the flop. If willing calls and turn won't help you, what is your plan from there on? That's a good question, and again, if we turn equity or we get a card that we can expect our willing to fold very often, I would bet. Usually I wouldn't. Checking is good option because ace high might be good if he has like king high flush draw or something, and we usually don't. Betting is usually not something we get good results from. So I would usually just check. If I had ace of diamonds or king of diamonds in my hand, king of diamond or ace of diamond in my hand, let's say ace king with one of those cards, I would be more likely to see bet, because I think it's more likely that we are having the best diamond draw, and the folding equity is the same, so we don't have to take all of our hands like that with ace high or king high hands and one diamond. We don't have to barrel all of them, so usually I would recommend you to barrel the better ones. Do you tend to defend by flatting from small blind versus late position opens? No, that's something I don't. That's not something I do too much. The only occasion I do that in is when big blind is very bad player and I want to lure him in. So that's the only scenario I do that in, and not even in that scenario too often. I don't like flatting ranges against. I know like Veini, for example, does that way more than I do, but building ranges with building a flatting and 3-betting range on small blind against late position opener is very hard, and even though we wouldn't get exploited by bad players, we make things easier for us if we only have a 3-betting range in this pot. Arimetsa, do you think a smaller SPR is a good thing for not to 3-bet that often? And if you do, why? I don't really get it. For the future, can you quickly open the hand history for the hand you are talking about so it's a bit easier? Yeah, sorry, that's a good tip for the future. So next time you ask something, I'm trying to find the hand we are discussing about. Yeah. I think I'm going to complete the 6-7 offsuit. And we get a gut shot. I don't think any of these players have ace too often. So this is a hand I like to include into my betting range. When I get 2 calls, I'm just going to give up. We have equity, which is pretty important for me. Yeah, I don't fully agree with Vaney. It's this is a one reason for flatting, but there could good things to happen in the future if we opt to 3-bet against some fishy big ones as well. I get limp min raised and faceable size bet. I'm just gonna fold. I can't fully agree with Arimetsa before I have thought what this would mean to our ranges and so on, but he might be right. I'm correct. In limped pot we have a flush draw, so ton of equity to bet with, and my villain usually has no aces and not too many kings when he limps, if he has a raising range as well. So that's a good spot to bet. Bet as a bluff or semi-bluff. This is a spot I could easily raise with. Raising, I didn't think about it too much, but I don't think flatting is too bad also, or either. Yeah, I think there's value in betting a raising pre-flop, because limpers usually have a very wide. I'm a bit bored, so I'm gonna take these 3-bet spots. 3-bet bluffing with no reach is usually something you don't want to do. I think this guy is a regular, so he's not gonna battle against me too much. And King 8 suited is fairly good hand to 3-bet. It's not quite good enough to flat, in my opinion, against assumed better player. Not better than me, but better than my opponent usually is. Yeah, I can't disagree with Callan. Although I would isolate more often from button than on small blind, because on small blind we get better odds to flat, so it kind of takes some of the disadvantage on uh, on the position side. I'm just gonna raise here, and I'm not quite sure about this sizing. I should take, because this is not a scenario we very often get ourselves into, because this guy only has 34 cents, and I hate my life if this guy opts to raise, because he can easily have set in this scenario, and he also has some flush draws which usually don't want to. In this spot my opponents have all of them have bigger stacks, so I'm just gonna 3x. Yeah, this guy has both sets and flush draws in his range, so given our blockers I wouldn't be able to fold, because it's more likely that he's going to have a flush draw, because there are like 45 combinations, I don't know, of flush draws, and only like one set of kings, one combo of kings and fours, and 3 combos of sevens. So I wouldn't be able to fold, and I don't think we are very often behind lead in this scenario. He might have like 6-8 of hearts. That's not nice. I think he has, I don't know what he has. I think there's not ton of value in betting, because he's only gonna have some king x hearts we get value from. We have a straight, right? Yeah. I'm gonna make a small raise. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's discuss about this river spot in here. I think he had a flush draw. Yeah, and he river draw pair, so he had no need to bluff. I think he realized that we either have a hand like ace high hearts. Well, Vaini, could you please explain why you would shout that? And I would like you to well, yeah, that's true that my average opponent might be bad, but he had a full stack, so usually I would like to assume that he's a bit better than an average guy. So if we think this, let's play this. I'm just gonna fold to about any action. I think his range is, he's very rarely going to have a king x hand, because he called on the flop and then called again when we re-raised, and then he called our bet on turn. So I think he's gonna have very often going to have a flush draw. He has so few mate hands because of blockers that I think, yes, I can replay. I think he has very few mate hands, and if he does, I think they are going to beat us. He has some straights which they are going to call every time, and he has quite a few flush draws with usually they have turned a 5. I think if he had king x of hearts, he would have shoved the flop just about every time. So it really does make sense for him to have a 5x of hearts or the or some kind of 8 or 6x of hearts that is going to call the turn. So on the river he usually has air turned a river 8 or straight, and there's no reason for shoving against that range. We get ace high, and well, all the missed draws we are going to get a fold from, and that's not something we want to do when we have 2 pair. If he has 8x, like ace 8 of hearts, I don't think he's ever going to call us. If he has 8-6 of hearts or something like that, he has a straight, and we value turn ourselves. So before agreeing with Danish insta shove on the river, I would like to get quite a few arguments to take over mine. I don't think there's close to any reason in shoving there. I like my play. They're just, yeah, I think checking is best. Check column. We are resuming. Yes, Colin says getting a beam board is an excellent reason to pre-bet light 9 king. But that's a spot I really thought it was close, and it was pretty good pre-bet plus pot. This is fairly close. I don't think I'm even going to see it. We turn equity. I don't think he has ace x hand like almost ever, but he's going to have some middle pairs, 6s, 2 kings, which, oh, I meant to bet there, because I thought I was going to get those hands to fold when I bet twice. So, second misclick of this session. Yeah, I didn't take the fact that he limped into account too heavily, but yet again I very strongly laid with my range, the range I gave him in that spot, and I think those are all arguments way stronger than the ones you made. And the fact that he doesn't bluff that often has nothing to do with the EV of our decision. I mean, it has something to do with the decision whether we are going to check call or check fold. If he doesn't bluff ever, we just have to check fold. But it has nothing to do with the decision of whether to bet or check the river. And I would say that checking is almost definitely the better option. And yeah, I was with the 1.5 SPR I was going to check call the river, because I think there are more combos that are usually going to bluff compared to the ones that river or straight. I wouldn't check fold, but if you made an argument somewhere here, I think you said that I think he would not even bluff that often. So that's a reason for, if he doesn't, then you can't check call. And I don't think he has too many king X hands because of our range and our line, and his most likely king X hand is one of those strong kings that would usually raise pre-flop, and the other ones either have a speed or have a flush draw, and the flush draw ones are very likely to shove on the flop against our trigger. Yeah, and I disagree with your decision. So I don't really know what you're trying to accomplish here. I still think that the arguments I made are a lot stronger than the ones you have made so far. Here I give up three-way, and against, I think ace king is not in my villains ranges too often because they only call free flop, so I almost always have the best hand unless they had backdraw or flushes, so it's a clear value bet. I think I'm gonna play for 10 more minutes, 15 minutes maybe, and then answer to some questions if you have any. Again, a very small 3-bet, always a fish. I think against short stacks on blinds, there's definitely value in open raising them because they don't call every time, and if they call, you have fold equity with the c-bet and so on. So I think open raising is the better option. Here I called these guys, these villains lead on the flop, and because he might have some 10 ace hands, and it's not like we are always beating the spot. And this is a hand I want to call with. If I was a3 offsuit, I would 4-bet or fold, but when it's suited, I think calling is fine. And I'm just going to showdown, hopefully winning, but I don't expect to win too often. He's not folding like ace-x. If he has ace-x, I don't think he's folding too often. He has eights. On the table 2, we have kind of a decision to make. This is a hand I want to include to my raising range. This is a board texture that is very good for my range, so I think I have more folding equity than on some other two spade boards or flops I would have. So therefore I would I want to raise the better flush draws I have, because in this spot we make the most money when we get our opponent to fold, and I think that's a very good spot to accomplish that. I don't always check back, so I see that sometimes, and this is a spot I want to check, see that we have 10 high, so close to no showdown equity, and we have a gut shot, so two very fine reasons for c-betting. On ace high flop, I think I'm not getting folds too often, even when betting twice or three times, so I'm just going to give up and trying to get a 3 on the river. Again, these opponents, they don't battle. I don't think he has too many fours and deuces in his range compared to the ones he has, compared to the ace x hands. And I don't think I get floated too often, because it's NL5 and my villains are fairly weak. So yeah, I'm just gonna min raise. Not every single button, but most of them. And again, the flop is, we are 3-way, and this is a very bad texture for me because it hits on both of these guys' ranges fairly well. So I would not have c-betted it. I would like to get any feedback or comments or anything about this session, apart from my English. I know it's very rusty and I haven't been too satisfied with the way it has been today, with me trying to speak English. But yeah, if you have any feedback about just about anything else, I would like to get it. I think I'm going to save it here. I might get some ace hands to fold with multiple barrels, and there are quite a few runouts I can bet twice or 3 times. Now we get a 2 times the pot dunk bet, sized dunk bet, so we are just going to fold. Table 1. Okay, I'm going to, okay, this guy limp raised, so I'm going to write a note about that. Yeah, I'm going to try to take an advantage of Björk's last advice to use the replayer, so raising not flush draw in position, trying to find the hand. Looks like I can't even use this replayer. Yeah, in this spot. If villain only calls, you miss the turn and villain checks. What is your plan from there on? Okay, that's a good question, but I think that's a scenario that is very rarely going to happen. We can discuss that, but again, in this spot, I can't think of any hands that my villain would just call with. if he's a good player. I think if he's a good player, he's going to 3-bet jam, draws, and made hands. And we are obviously calling when we are raising here. If he's a bad player and he ends up calling here, there are very few turn cards I would continue betting on, because it usually means that he has something he wants to see a showdown with, and if I don't have fold equity with this race, I don't expect to have it too much of it on the turn either. So yeah, I would begin with the expectation that he's willing to see a showdown, so I would jam aces and spades for value. Well, not even aces, maybe. Well, I don't know. It's pretty hard to say, because any thinking player should never have a calling range in this pot. And if he should fish, I think he is very rarely going to have any ace-x hand. Maybe ace-10 or ace-9, but I would assume ace-10 is going to shove, and ace-9, I don't know how often bad players 3-bet such hands and flat the range, so it's hard to say, but yeah, I usually wouldn't bluff on the turn. I would value jam and value jam only if I somehow face a call. I'm going to play for 5 more minutes, and then we can discuss about what we have seen today. So this is just about the time to ask if you have any questions just about anything. And yeah, I got 3-bet, and I usually would play fairly tight against high checks 3-bets, but now the odds are just too good to fold a suited connector like that. Even if I saw he had a range of jacks plus or queens plus and ace king, I would call. I want to see this hand, what happens. He ends up folding, so I think he had ace king maybe, and if he had ace king, I think the flop c-bet is very bad. So yeah, maybe he's not that good of an opponent. Even though in table 2 we have pocket trees, and even though I isolate quite a few hands, pocket trees is not something I would isolate with, because I don't mind playing a multi-way pot with pocket pair T-small. And now I'm just going to call when we face a raise. We are very deep, so we have to peek. From time to time, when we flop a set, we have to be careful. We cannot just stack every time we hit a tree, but fairly often, if we think a set, we are playing for. We are trying to get it in. Yeah, not too many of comments in the chat box, which I can't say it's too nice, because obviously it would be a good thing to have to get discussion about poker, and I don't host these poker nights too often, so when I do, I would like you guys to be more active. I raise pre-flop and get a call in the turn. I think this is a good card to barrel on. We turn a gut shot, and this is a card I expect my opponent to fold sometimes. Now I'm just going to give up. Give up. I think this is a profitable 2-barrel spot. So I'm just going to give up. He called me with the ace deuce. So I think I'm just going to label him as a fish. I'm going to give a quick nose. Bottom, limp call, ace deuce off. Call. 4-3-2 rainbow. Call offsuit 6 and check the turn off whatever suit. So not again, that's very kind of you, but I really don't think well, it seems like you are a very good student if you have correctly understood everything I have said, and you have no like you don't disagree on anything, but it's obviously plausible, so good for you. We have an ace high flush draw. We are all out of position and we are the open raiser, so I'm just going to see it even though it's 3-way. I don't see that bluff in 3-bet pots and 3-way pots too often, but this is a hand I want to include to my betting range, and it has fairly good equity. This is close whether I want to jam or make a small raise. I think small raise gets a bit more action. And now we have only one pot-sized bet left, and I don't expect to get called by a worse hand too often. He might bluff, so we are never folding in this spot. He mean 3-bet, so I'm just check calling and trying to get him to put the money in, which means that he can have bluffs. I'm hoping he doesn't have ace king or any pairs, but I'm expecting ace king would have shoved pre-flop and most of the pairs as well. Jack 4. Nothing to say about that one. Just going to make notes. Against hijack open, against a player we just played against, I definitely want to call king queen off. Might even 3-bet for value because I saw him call with jack 4, but flatting is fine as well. Thank you, Vaney. Nice to agree with you sometimes, from time to time. This is a spot I want to call, even though I think this guy is already because he knows how to 3-bet in this spot, but I think our hand is fairly strong, too strong to fold. Chance just gonna call and see what happens on the turn. Against a huge bet, I would like to state that he's more likely not to be that good, because this really doesn't make any sense compared to the smaller sizings. And even though we have a gut shot and backdoor flush draw and 2 overs, I'm not gonna call. So yeah, we lost $2 today. Most of it was because of some of it was because of this ace queen hand, and most of it was with the other ace queen hand when we called a 3-bet and flopped 2 pair, and that's something we really can't do too much about. I think we played fairly good. There were some spots I would like to play differently from now on, but they were minuscule compared to the big ones, I think. Yeah, I agree with Rainy that ace queen hand where we 4-bet a clear fish. Many of the beginning players usually just jam or check fold, but check calling is the way to go. Well, thank you. That's a very nice thing to hear from you. Yeah, for some reason my microphone I have been using didn't work today, so I had to use the laptop's one, which is not as good. So that's something I'm trying to fix to the next session. Yeah, Bjarke explains the fact really well. Yeah, that's about it. As you most likely saw, the games were extremely soft, and I didn't even label every guy who open linked, and I would say that there were just about every other guy who we played against was very bad, and even the regular players, or the ones we assumed were regulars, were fairly bad. Like in the end with the king queen hand on the jack 9-9 board, I expected the razor to be more likely to be a regular than unknowns are, and then he made a very huge bet on the turn on the flop, so that really doesn't make any sense. So if regulars are that bad in the long run, 8-8 poker and snap poker is something I would highly recommend you to play on. Again, if you want to support Poker Armenia and you want to support our poker nights, you can register and make an account on 888 Poker. Just go to our forum and from 888 Poker section follow the instructions. Therefore we can have more poker nights in the future, and hopefully with the better quality. Somehow, I don't know what the poker nights are going to be like in the future, but yeah, that's a good way to support us. If you have any questions, I will answer for them for the next 2 minutes, but I'm very thankful of this opportunity. You didn't do me because of my English, so that's always nice. You had very good questions on quite a few spots. Obviously, it would always be better if there were more questions or something to discuss about. But I was fairly satisfied, and it was fairly easy and pretty nice to have a poker night with you guys. And even with Kaleon asking about heads up stuff, which was kind of off topic, but it's nice to have any strategic conversation going on. yeah, I think in the beginning of your poker career, you definitely don't need to use a HUD to make a profit. Um, you can get some advantage out of it, but the HUD doesn't make the decisions and might at least sometimes give you false information. So as I did, and I think most of poker players start without a HUD. It's definitely possible even in 2014. Yeah, in every stake, I think, or at every stake, I think the snap poker is going to be fairly soft, and there are games running all the way up to NL 50, and even in NL 100 and NL 200 there are few players. So yeah, that's it. I was Youlostbro, and hoping to see you guys in future poker nights. To give a feedback, if you watch this afterwards from YouTube, to give me feedback, go to the register to our forum, make an account, go to Insiders, and take this Youlostbro's feedback and suggestions for Youlostbro's No Limit Hold'em nights, and from there you can give me feedback and suggest any of the future stuff you would like to see from me. And yeah, there's a private coaching session. I haven't had time to write my own thread about private coachings in English. I have one in Finnish, but in English it's yet to come, but in the future I will. And if you have interest in taking some private coaching, just send me a personal message at the forum. Yeah, this was it. Thanks to all, and bye.